The discovery of the mass grave is gripping the nation tonight. CTV's Travis Prasad now with more on how the country is honoring the 215 lives taken too soon.
As Vancouver's civic buildings lower their flags, so do other parts of the country. In Ottawa, Canada's flag atop the Peace Tower flies at half-mast. Parts of Nova Scotia will lower their flags on Monday. Municipal buildings in Greater Toronto already have. Many will stay this way for 215 hours, 1 hour for each of the young lives lost.
Many of you know that just over a year ago, the discovery of the remains of 215 children was found at the Kamloops Indian Residential School at the Kamloops First Nation. But what if I were to show you that what I just said wasn't true, and that in fact, a year later, not a single body has been found?
There's a developing story out of British Columbia. A First Nation says the remains of more than 200 children have been located.
The first time the Pope has publicly addressed the discovery of remains buried at a former residential school in Kamloops.
Nearly 1 week after the world learned the remains of 215 Indigenous children were found on the grounds of a former residential school in Kamloops.
I'm Drea Humphrey, a Black, Indigenous, Christian woman. I'm a wife and a mother who would never want any harm to come to my children or any child, because every child matters. I'm also a journalist with Rebel News, one that has a hunger for bringing you the truth, even if that truth is going to be hard for you to swallow, or even if there are forces making it hard for me to find the truth in the first place. Now, the things I just listed that make me who I am are exactly why, when I read that first press release from the Kamloops First Nation band that had the heart-wrenching claim that 215 former students' remains from the Kamloops Indian Residential School had been confirmed to be discovered, I, like many across the world, grieved. And it was being claimed to have been discovered by politicians and media outlets alike to be in a mass grave.
I want to talk about the heartbreaking news that 215 children were found buried at the former Kamloops residential school. 215 children. Think of their loving families that they were ripped away from. Think of the communities that never saw them again. Think of their hopes, their dreams, their potential, of all they would have accomplished, all they would have become. All of that was taken away.
I struggled to find words to express my horror and grief at the discovery of these remains of 215 First Nations children. I realize it's because there are no words that can do justice to those children and the countless others who died alone and scared, far from home, far from the families who loved them.
This weekend, my 9-year-old son, Jack, asked me why the flags were lowered to half-mast in Ottawa. I had the difficult task of explaining to him the terrible news of the graves of children found at the site of a residential school. "Kids aren't supposed to die at school, Dad," he said to me. As a parent, it is devastating to think of 215 children.
This mass grave is a painful reminder of the genocide. And what we have to commit to is that in light of this genocide, Canada has to make some real tough decisions.
There have been rumors of some kind of mass grave on this site for decades.
A pair of shoes for each child who was sent to school and never returned, some as young as 3. Their bodies discovered buried at an Indian residential school in Canada. Rumours circled for decades at Kamloops, once the largest boarding school in the country run by the Catholic Church. Stories of missing children and grave sites. Decades on, confirmation through the use of ground-penetrating radar, a mass burial on school grounds. 215 bodies.
The people that did that, sometimes I cried. I try to hide my anger.
The remains of 215 children have been found in a mass grave at a former residential school in Canada.
Nafisa, as people stop by here to reflect, some sing, some cry, others stare in stoic silence at 215 pairs of shoes representing young lives cruelly taken and then buried for decades.
Well, the remains of 215 children have been found in a mass grave in Canada.
A mass grave. It sounded like evidence that these children had been slaughtered and disposed of in some pit. Now, to honor those children and the public, myself and my BC producer Matt Brevner made the journey to Kamloops to bring you an in-depth report from the school grounds where such horrors had taken place. We expected to find a community in grief. We expected to find a renewed reminder of a dark chapter in Canada's history when children were snatched away from their families and forced to attend a government-mandated residential school. But what we never expected to find was that the claims about the discovery, which preceded a cultural wildfire that sparked a national identity of shame and engulfed Christian places of worship and accelerated the promise of millions of dollars to be released for unmarked graves from our federal government. We never expected that those claims would not be substantiated, and that those who were the closest to the claims were either unwilling or unable to provide us with clarity. Lastly, we certainly didn't expect that I would seem to be the only news reporter in the whole country, maybe even the whole world at the time, who would publicly question why this is the case. Unlike the mass grave claimers at the New York Post and National Post, whose journalistic light bulbs took a year to turn on, or the rest of Canada's legacy media, which is still keeping people in the dark, I never stopped looking for the answers to the questions we couldn't find 1 year ago. And that's why right now you're about to go with us during our 2-day investigation where this reported gruesome discovery began. You'll watch and listen to raw, unseen footage of our investigation with the RCMP, a lead investigator at the BC Coroner's Office, an accomplished researcher. You'll learn about a police report and how it was handled by the RCMP that relates to the discovery at the former residential school. And you'll even hear directly from Cookbee Roseanne Casimir, the Kamloops Shuswamic First Nations chief herself. You'll also see what it takes for a news reporter who's had every journalistic door shut on her for a year to sort through the facts and fictions on what has become one of the most impactful declarations made in Canadian history. And one more thing, don't shoot the messenger.
Already rolling.
What do you think we're gonna find?
You know, I think we're gonna find that the people who possess all the answers are not gonna be that interested in giving more answers. But I hope that I find that I eat my words, and they do.
Yeah, I hope so too. They weren't really interested in talking to us a year ago. I don't know if much is going to change.
Yeah, me either. But that's why we're doing this. It's very important. So let's see. Kamloops.
All right, let's hit the road.
All right.
And so off we went, down Highway 1, through Merritt. And one of the first things we noticed when we arrived to Kamloops is that the wooden crosses that had been set up to remember the children who were missing from the Kamloops Indian Residential School were no longer there. We'll get back to why that matters soon.
You see the dresses? No, they're gone, right?
Yeah, I think they're gone.
Interesting.
Not durable. They do get a lot of snow and stuff over here.
Okay. At any point has the RCMP, no comma, investigated.
Wait, so what are you doing right now?
Right now, I am contacting the Kamloops RCMP for, I don't even know, too many times to count over the last year, to see if at some point they plan to investigate what was originally reported as the remains of 215 children who were students at the Kamloops Indian Residential School as a crime scene at all. So far, it's always been the consistent answer. We are waiting for instruction from the band government on what to do next. What is a band government? Band governments are managed by elected councils according to the laws of the Indian Act. Today, some bands prefer to call themselves First Nations. In other words, a band government is a group of elected politicians.
If there was claim of human remains found on site, don't the RCMP have a responsibility to go in there? Or?
You would think so, the BC coroners as well. But the excuse behind why they are not is due to the sensitive nature of the culture. Which brings me to the next point, and something I haven't seen talked about at all, really, and anybody who is starting to shed light on this situation like we did from the get-go. There was an apparent rib bone found. No one's talking about the rib bone, the juvenile rib bone that this expert, Dr. Beaulieu, says was surfaced on the ground. Who is the expert that made this discovery? Meet Dr. Sarah Beaulieu. Dr. Beaulieu is a modern conflict anthropologist that works as a faculty associate in the Community Health and Social Innovation Hub at the University of the Fraser Valley. She has experience with excavation and using ground-penetrating radar technology, GPR, and it was her research that the band relied on to initially tell the world that the remains of 215 former students was confirmed to be found at the school. Except weeks later, Dr. Beaulieu changed the story.
The total number of burials of missing children at the Kamloops Indian Residential School landscape is currently unknown, as this was a preliminary investigation. My report identifies some of these probable locations. There remain over 160 acres that still require surveying before these numbers can be finalized. From my preliminary findings in May to today's results, reports providing additional information related to disturbances from archaeological impact assessments, as well as construction in parts of this area, were subsequently provided to me. These reports were reviewed in order to determine which of these locations overlapped with the GPR survey areas. After this review, it was determined that there remain 200 targets of interest in these preliminary results. Again, here, I must indicate that this is the first part of an investigation with a knowing and oral histories that tells us that there remain much more work to be done.
200 probable graves, targets of interest, anomalies. In other words, there could be more graves or there could be none at all. Beaulieu stated she chose the location that was surveyed by GPR based on the following.
Between May 21st and 24th, 7,000 square meters of land, just under 2 acres, was covered in the location of the apple orchard at the Secwepemc Museum and Heritage Park. This area of interest was chosen for the survey based on a number of factors. First, the knowledge keepers' oral histories that recall children as young as 6 years old being woken in the night to dig holes for burials in the apple orchard. Second, a juvenile rib bone that surfaced in the same area. Third, a juvenile tooth that was excavated from a shovel test pit during an impact assessment conducted by Simon Fraser University's archaeology department. A juvenile tooth is not an indicator of loss of life, but given both discoveries, the possibility should not be discounted.
So has the BC Coroner's Office even investigated this discovery of a juvenile rib bone?
Well, I left Chattanooga, boy, had $1 and a dime.
I'm the dog.
Thank you.
BC Coroner Service, good afternoon.
Hi, I was just curious. It's kind of a weird question. What are the rules surrounding if
I found, or someone found, a possible bone. I don't know if it's human or whatnot, but I'm not sure if the person is comfortable sharing that information. What are the rules surrounding that?
I'm not too sure. So I'm just hoping here. Did you or something find a bone?
Yeah, somebody has found a bone, but I'm not sure they're comfortable sharing it. So I was just wondering what the BC coroner's role is when that happens.
I see. I do have to ask our IT specialist on what the procedures around that is.
Can I talk to them? Is that okay?
I don't know if they're in the office today, but I can put a message in to give you a call back.
Sure. And what's you said they're the ID specialist?
Oh, yes, the identification specialist. So if you know,
thank you so much.
Of course, and just to double check, which region are you calling from?
BC.
Which city?
Kamloops.
I'll leave a message for her and I should give you a call back.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye.
No worries. Bye-bye.
So we wait for the ID specialist.
Okay, is this Drea?
Yes, it is.
I'm calling from the coroner's office. I understand you spoke with our front desk reception earlier about found bone.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird question, but my question is, yes, definitely. If someone believes they found what might be a human bone, but they're kind of like scared to talk about it, I was wondering, like, what is
you're breaking up a lot. I can't really hear you very well, sorry.
Okay, I'm just gonna pull over for a second. Can you just bear with me a minute?
Okay.
See if I can get some better reception here. Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, you're coming through well now.
Okay, sorry about that. It's the Bluetooth. So basically, if someone found a bone, they're not sure exactly if it's human, but they think it's human, but they're also hesitant to say something. I'm trying to encourage the person to say something. So I was just wondering, what is the BC coroner's, what happens in that situation? What are you guys obligated to do? I would imagine you're supposed to look at it or something.
Yeah, I mean, typically people either take it into the local RCMP detachment or, send photos to the RCMP, but you can also send photos directly to us.
Mm-hmm. This ID specialist is right. I mean, anybody who finds a bone most likely is going to go to the RCMP, except when I reached out to the RCMP, they said they received no such report at the time. And also when I reached out to Dr. Bullier to see if she planned on letting them know about the juvenile rib bone, she did not respond. And what is a juvenile bone anyways? The word juvenile simply means young, immature, underdeveloped.
The easiest first thing to do is just to send some photos so that we can determine whether or not it is human and is something that needs to be investigated.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, if the person doesn't want to take it into their local RCMP detachment, that is fine. I can give you an email address that you can pass on, and they can just take a couple of photos, even with a cell phone, and send those.
Mm-hmm. If somebody does find like a human bone, is the coroner's office obligated to investigate that though? Like, do they have to look at it or not necessarily all the time?
No, well, we're obligated to investigate any sudden and unexpected death, and when a bone is found, we obviously don't know whether it is sudden and unexpected.
Right.
There's also the possibility that it could be ancient or historical remains, which could require some further testing. But to be honest, 95% of these cases where people call or take the bones into the police saying, I found a human bone.
Right.
It's not a human bone.
Okay, well.
Unless it's really clearly like like a human skull or something, which is
Well, then it's obvious, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try to get this person to maybe talk to the RCMP, but it's been a while, so I don't know if they're going to do that. And they were kind of like, oh, it's just fine. It's from something before. So if it was like sorry?
There are hundreds, actually just over 2,000 historical missing persons in BC dating back to the 50s whose remains are out there somewhere, and that's thousands of families waiting to try and figure out where their loved ones are. So we definitely would encourage it to be recorded, and if it's been a while, that's fine. That happens all the time.
Did you just catch that? 2,000 missing historical people in BC since the 50s. Now that makes sense, since in 2019, the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls found that BC had twice the national rate of missing people. And despite Kamloops being a small city, its RCMP have had to deal with as high as 1,000 missing persons cases a year. So when an anthropologist like Dr. Bullier announces that a juvenile rib bone was found surface anywhere in Kamloops, let alone right beside what much of the world believes is an unmarked gravesite filled with hundreds of missing children from across Canada, shouldn't that mean that all parties, including the band's primary objective, should be repatriation? Repatriation, the deep spiritual connection most Indigenous communities have for their dead, including reverence for ancestors and the cultural necessity to return them home.
People find a bone and take it home and put it on a shelf, and then later on realize, hang on, maybe I should report this to someone. But I can give you our email address if they would rather come straight to us than going through the police. That's also fine.
Okay. Yeah. Your email?
So it's just...
And then if someone, like, what if it was myself and I was like, someone's claiming that they found what they think is a human bone, but I don't have a picture of it, and then I send you the email, and I do have, like, video or audio of them saying that. Like, would you guys have to do something?
Not really much we could, with that, there's not really much we can do unless we determine that it is actually take a look at the remains and determine that they really are human and should be investigated. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people. I don't know if that's something that might help you convince them. There are a lot of people out there looking for missing loved ones. So
yeah, exactly. And from recent times, right?
Absolutely. From dating back to the 50s, like I said, right up until this year. There's a lot of people out there still missing. So.
But on the flip side, if someone claims it's like a human bone, it might not be the case unless you guys have really investigated it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is my area of expertise. I've looked at tens of thousands of human and non-human bones. That's what I do. So I don't expect other people to have that experience and knowledge. And you'd be surprised the number of people who say, I'm a doctor, I'm a paramedic. This is definitely a human bone, and it's definitely not.
Awesome. Now, I remember, with the whole children in the unmarked graves in Kamloops, because this is the area where it's found, like the bone, I'm not talking about that, but I'm just saying, I remember they used some sort of technology where they found those bones. So if there's more in this area, can we somehow, use that to see if anything's under the ground or something? Is that an efficient way to find out if there's more? If they're correct that this is a bone, could we use whatever that equipment is? I think it was called radar or something.
Yeah, so the problem is that's actually not a very efficient way of doing it unless you really know where you're looking, because you basically have to actually cover every square inch of ground with the radar. So if you have anything, if you have large areas, it's almost impossible to do. And the problem with that technology is that it picks up anomalies. It doesn't actually, it doesn't pick up a bone specifically. It picks up something that's different in the earth that's not the earth.
This is a crime scene. This is a crime. It's a crime against humanity. It's a crime against children, and it has to be investigated. And that's what these ground penetrating radar processes have done, is they've given us the evidence. They've given us undisputable proof that genocide did occur in Canada. And Those crimes have to be investigated, as with any crime, and those crimes have to be prosecuted.
Oh.
So it picks up rocks, it picks up, all sorts of, any anomaly where it's different. So.
Well, maybe I'm talking, maybe.
That's not.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, it's just, unless you know exactly where you're looking, it's not the most efficient or effective technology to use.
Okay, but if you looked in the same spot that this bone was found, then maybe if there's other stuff under there, you could find it, or no. I think maybe we're talking about a different equipment, because they said that they found the children, right? But I don't think they dug them up. I can't remember. I think it was called ground penetrating radar something. Are you talking about the same thing? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so what they have found is anomalies, what appears to be graves, but no excavations have been done as of yet, so.
Oh.
Yeah, it's but, honestly, if there's an area where if there was ever an area where we really suspected strongly that there was something else buried there, but honestly, the fastest and most efficient way of figuring that out is to dig it up.
Yeah. Did you guys do any work, for the gravesite to see,
No, we haven't been involved with that.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you for calling me back. Wish me luck.
Yeah, definitely good luck. You're welcome.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Well, the BC Coroner's Office, the most trained, one of their specialists in IDing, says that ground penetrating radar is not adequate for determining the claim that was said to the world, which was 215 bodies were located.
That's crazy. We have to put basically this whole call up uncut.
Oh, you're stopped now?
No, I'm recording the whole thing, but I'm saying if they had known that we were media, there's no chance she would have said that.
Oh, there is no chance, because I've reached out as media, and you don't get that quality of answer when you're going to inform the public about something.
And you've been emailing them for a year.
I have been emailing them for a year. They haven't even responded sometimes, but initially they did respond. They did say that they were not involved in the investigation at the beginning, but then they just stopped answering. So you would think after a year goes by, if this is, Jagmeet Singh is out there indicating it's almost like a massacre of sorts.
This mass grave is a painful reminder of the genocide. And what we have to commit to is that in light of this genocide, Canada has to make some real tough decisions.
You would think the RCMP and the BC Coroner's Office would be involved in such a horrific investigation.
It's crazy to me that she said basically over 95% of all bones that they find that people think, even experts, quote unquote, think are human bones aren't.
I wonder what the things that could be underground are.
Well, it could be rocks, it could be tree roots, it could literally be anything by the sounds of that.
Now, I'm not the only one who is perplexed as to why the RCMP and BC coroners' many resources don't seem to be needed when it comes to investigating this culture-shifting discovery and apparent juvenile rib bone as well. I spoke to an Ontario-based researcher who is part of a team looking into the unmarked grave discoveries at Canada's residential schools. She shared some of my questions and decided it would be appropriate to file a police report about Dr. Bollier's claims to see if the alleged rib bone and unmarked gravesite discoveries would finally be investigated by the RCMP as a potential crime scene. For the purposes of this documentary, we will be keeping this researcher's identity anonymous.
Hello?
Hello.
Oh, hello. Hi. Is this the number to make a report?
It is.
Okay. I would like to make a report about a child's bone that was found on a property in Kamloops.
Do you know the address?
I don't, but it's at the site of the former Kamloops residential school.
Which street is that near?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not in Kamloops, so I don't.
Where did you hear of this news?
Well, I heard of it when they were doing the searching of the yard with the ground penetrating radar. They had an archaeologist who was there called Sarah Beaulieu, and she mentioned in her in her press release that she had that a tourist had apparently found a juvenile rib bone on the property. I think it's near the museum. They have a park there.
And when was this news release?
Oh, it was a year ago.
Okay. And may I ask why you're calling us today?
Well, because we've just passed the year anniversary of when apparently 200 graves were discovered at the site of the former Kamloops residential school. And it made me think, well, if there are graves there, then the police should be securing that site. Otherwise, anything could happen. It really needs to be secure. If this is indeed a site of burials, and I know that they just hired a woman to, she's called an interlocutor, and David Lametti, who's he hired her, appointed her, and they're looking at these sites as criminal sites, I think they're calling them criminal sites.
Okay, I can make a file and then I'll have an officer follow up with you if you'd like.
Yes, please.
Okay, and when you do receive the phone call, just for the heads up, it'll come up as a private or no caller ID.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye for now.
Now that the RCMP's "we never received a report" excuse was no longer valid, we had to wait to see if the officer who called back this researcher would do any investigative work about that juvenile rib bone. In the meantime, why not see what else we could find out about the 51 former students that the Canadian Centre for Truth and Reconciliation showed died during the 80 years the school was in operation? Were there any death certificates that show some of these children were buried in a nearby cemetery on the reserve, or buried further away in a cemetery on a reserve close to the child's family, like some other children who were marked as residential school student deaths in Canada? Would their cause of death be unknown, suspicious, or tied to the leading cause of death at the time, tuberculosis, and other major causes of death, such as influenza or the poor living conditions the children were subjected to, in part due to the lack of government funding, as well as accidents?
When I used to go to school here, we used to be back here where we used to have apples and all that there. Where the cows, we used to have the cows and pigs and chickens and all that. And that day we had to look after the boys. We used to look after the boys for the horses and all that. Then we had that hay, and then we used to throw all that hay over to the horses and the cows and all that. And we fight when we were jumping, throw all that hay and everything down. And the boy, our little cousin, threw that hay on the ground. And we forgot when we're jumping, we're running and everything, running and around, jumping over the hay. When he found out, one of our cousins, it fell into that thing, and what he did, it poked him, and he killed him right there, and and we seen it, and we were all happy to see him. But when they come out to death, when he died, that hurted us, and I was a really good friend, and what happened? I was really good. He was just like a half brother and everything when he died, and made me even cry too.
Were there a lot of accidents like that happened here?
Yeah, and down over here, some of them girls wasn't good. On the girls' side, that wasn't good there down there. So for the girls, when you wash them for the water and we do wash their clothes and all that there.
We thought the best place to dig for more answers about the Kamloops Indian Residential School students' deaths would be at the archives inside of the reserves at the museum, which had been closed off to me and the public a year ago when I tried to do so.
So you're saying it's closed?
Yeah, so...
Sorry, you're saying it's closed for renovations because there was obviously the development that was announced last summer, but I didn't realize that there was any excavation of the site to confirm the
No, it's been GPR'd.
Right.
Ground penetrating radar.
Right. Oh, I understand that, but it was my understanding that had to be substantiated. Right? Like on the last press release.
We still have to do work.
Right.
Go ahead.
Sorry, on the last press release, it was, I believe, it was stated that it was the GPR that is alluding to findings, but it needed to be confirmed still. So I'm sorry, I'm confused. Was that confirmed?
We have confirmed it was ground penetrating radar. There are ancestral remains on site.
Okay, I see. So is that the unmarked mass grave?
Yes.
So it was a mass grave.
Yes.
It was ground penetrating radar. There are ancestral remains on site.
Okay, I see. So is that the unmarked mass grave?
So the museum is still closed. And year later, and when you called to ask, the first response was, when you said, why is it closed? The first response is, some people don't know this, but we have located 215 bodies in the Heritage Park. Here we are a year later, even after the band has come out and clarified in their final report that it's 200 probable graves and that excavation would have to take place in order to actually confirm what's under there. That people still working in that same location, that same vicinity, and working and closing things still believe the original story, which was 215 bodies.
Yeah, and she said it was a mass grave.
All right, did I play that
Which
part?
I thought was interesting.
Did I play that part? That's at the very end.
Next, yeah.
Yes.
So it was a mass grave.
Or we can just show that.
Oh, okay. When do you guys plan on opening?
How does that happen? How do the people right there who walk by the school every single day not know the facts? This wasn't a mass grave, and we don't know if or how many bodies are there.
Well, if is a big one. We don't know if there's any bodies there.
Still closed. I learned after this that even if the museum had been open to the public, much of the archives that would have been of particular interest to a journalist covering this story were removed from the museum and sent to the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation in Manitoba. But Matt's call to the museum pointed out something else important. If someone who works right next to this probable gravesite in the museum where the history of the Kamloops Indian Residential School is normally kept still believes the misinformation about 215 children being discovered there in a mass grave, how many others in the community are still in the dark as well? I'm sure you've heard about the discovery of the unmarked grave site, right? And then we're also just asking people in their own words what they think happened there.
Are you talking about at the Bend land? Oh, like what happened so that there were that many bodies in one space?
Yeah. Like just this last year?
Yeah, the discovery.
Oh, we just found, was it like 700 unmarked graves on the property of the Kamloops residential school where it was.
Bodies?
Yes. How many bodies?
I don't know.
Over 200.
A bunch of dead bodies.
Do you know how many?
I thought it was 16 or something.
Well, the first press release was 215 at that school.
215, yeah.
Okay. From what I know, which is admittedly ignorant, over 200 bodies of young Indigenous people were found in one space at the Secwepemc former residential school. So something tragic happened. from my perspective, it's mishandling of people, disrespect historically. I guess I can't say what could even lead that to happen, but presumably whoever was running that organization, which I think is the church,
Church and the government,
made some very bad decisions and that were not in the best interests of humanitarianism. And it's murder. I mean, I'm not sure how the people, like, to be honest, I don't know how they died. So
I think it's like a very tragic thing, and I'm hoping that people can use that as an opportunity to care more about Indigenous populations and what they have to do to fight for their rights, fight for recognition, for land recognition. It's a really emotional thing. Like, even just thinking about it now kind of shakes my chest a little bit. And as guests and visitors to the uninvited guests to this land, I think it's really important for people like me to take the time to listen to what those communities have to say and recognize that they've been through a lot and that there's like a lot that we can do to make sure that they are getting their voices heard and having action from government to make sure that they're being listened to.
What happened there was a Catholic system that pulled people and children from their families in small communities, rounded them up like cattle, and put them into a school without their culture and tried to assimilate them into a Catholic regime. The atrocities that were committed on those 215 is a small portion of what is all in Canada, to be honest. What I don't understand is how does a Catholic regime, why are they exempt from the law? You know, these children, all these spirits who never saw their family again, and the family who are in cycles of homelessness and the different cycles that an Indigenous community faces right now comes a lot from trauma.
Does that have to do with the Catholic Church or what? Pretty much, eh? Why don't they take accountability? Never mind the Pope coming here and blowing smoke up our ass. It's time to be accountable for what they did.
Well, there's been apologies.
But apologies only go so far.
So what do you think is still needed?
They just need to be accountable for what they did and reimbursing the people for what they went through and suffered, the families that lost. How do we even know who lost what, right?
Shortly after the discovery was given of the 215 bodies, the lady who discovered it said that it's actually 200 probable graves and they wouldn't know unless they actually did excavation what is actually under the ground. Does it surprise you to know that they still haven't done any excavations yet?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's pretty important. Somebody should have kind of been on it right away.
Is it surprising to know that there's been no actual criminal investigation and no excavation of what's under the ground there?
In a year? Absolutely. There should probably be more action taken by now to really find out what the truth is. Like, if we're talking about absolute truth, it's better that we all know it so we can address it and make reparations. Absolutely. So I guess I don't understand, there might be other issues around exhumation of bodies that takes a lot longer than you would think. I have no idea what the reasoning is, but a year seems like a long time to not have any answers.
Right. They might not do any excavation at all. What do you think, Pat?
Yeah, that seems like the baseline. So just at least dig them up and find out why they died or how they died.
Or who they are, the DNA, where did it come from?
Yeah, I think...
Who is stopping that digging, though?
Sorry?
Who is stopping that digging from happening?
Well, that's a good question. That's kind of what we've tried to figure out for a year. When we talk to the RCMP, they say it's up to the band if they want them to investigate it like a crime scene. When we talk to the BC coroners, they say the same thing.
So what does the band say?
Yeah.
The band says that they're not making any promises about excavating.
Well,
I get,
If you can't excavate, how much further can you go, really?
How much further can we go towards truth, reconciliation, and repatriation for the children that are reported missing from Kamloops Indian Residential School without truly knowing if some of them are buried beneath the soil there and why? It was time for us to return back to the school, to the museum, and to the band office a year later to see if we could find out the answer to that question, as well as to see if we could find out what happened to those wooden crosses that lined the highway representing the 215 buried children, which are more accurately now 200 anomalies under the ground. Why do I keep bringing up those crosses? Well, unlike the reports that came out about the unmarked gravesite at Kamloops Indian Residential School, some other bands who announced the location of their unmarked grave sites near their schools prevented the mass grave site rumors by clearly communicating from the beginning that although the graves were unmarked today, they were likely marked at the time of the burials. In Dr. Bollier's final report, without doing excavation, she claimed that the GPR findings were consistent with that of Christian burials at the time. Christian burials at the time were traditionally marked with small wooden crosses, much like the ones that were along the highway last year. So if there truly is a gravesite full of children's remains at the apple orchard near Kamloops Indian Residential School, is it possible that they too were once marked with small wooden crosses that broke down over time? And did the wooden crosses that were along the highway break down as quickly as in 1 year?
No, they're gone, right?
All right, so you're going to go into the museum right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's lab me up or whatever.
You up there.
So you were told it was closed still because of the discovery. And so I'm just going to go and, now at this point, we're definitely looking into the history of missing women and children, because around 1,000 have gone missing in the last 3 decades, sorry. So we're going to say that that's what we're looking into. I'm going to try to get into the files. Of course, they're going to say it's closed. I'm just going to see what else I can find out.
All right.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. Drive. Oh, shoot. Oh, gosh. Oh,
that's okay.
What do we do? We're going to have to talk to her, Matt.
Are they out there?
I'm sure there's a sign right here that says you can't go over there, right?
Yeah.
She's gonna go. Which way is she gonna go?
Probably down there. I'd imagine that's the office.
Hi, Cookie. How are you? Do you know why the crosses are no longer there, along with the missing women and children?
Yes, I do. They are. Hi.
Hi.
Good. Yourself?
Good. Sorry, we just had a question.
Yeah, we're doing an update, and I did reach out to your media a few times, but I haven't heard back.
Oh, okay.
But we were just wondering, because we came to get some B-roll of the crosses that were lined out there.
Okay, yeah, they became very, very weathered, and very weathered.
Oh.
So we had some of our individuals go and take care of them.
Okay.
Yes.
Are they going to come back up, or?
I don't know.
I guess in Kamloops it breaks down over time, the little wooden crosses, right?
And if you see just how busy that highway is,
Yeah, it's in rough shape.
It was very rough shape. It was very sad shape, and a lot of it was.
Do you know where the museum's still closed? Because I wanted to kind of look at some of the archives and get some of the history and everything.
So, are you recording?
Yeah.
Okay, there's no ask for.
Okay, just put it down. What's the best way to reach you? Because I've tried for over a year, to be honest, to try to connect for an interview or something. So
Okay. Well, honestly, I've had done like a million interviews.
I bet. I think you were just doing one.
No, it was just a yes.
Okay.
But no, I've done a million interviews, and so previously, like before Christmas, it was going through South Boy.
Yeah.
And so since then, my EA has gone on maternity, so I didn't know anyone. So if someone dropped me something, then I would respond.
Oh, I think it still says Ms. Coy when I reach out now, so maybe I need a new contact or whatever. But we were curious, can we get into the museum somehow? Or?
No, the museum is shut down. Oh, the museum is actually in this building.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So, but you can't. That's where the archives are, right?
Yeah, but you can't access it.
Okay.
Yeah.
How come?
The museum is shut down right now.
Like for, do you know how much longer?
No, undetermined at this point.
Okay. Where's the best place to get like the history, like to look through archives and things like that right now?
Right now, that's not my department. I'm political.
Okay.
Not technical. So,
well, I guess
I would have to come back and just find out exactly where all that stuff is, because like I know that if you're talking about like records, like whether it's for the students that were attending here,
right? That and also just in general the missing women and children.
So those there would be probably you could look in places like the reconciliation,
right?
And the main office there is in Winnipeg.
Okay.
So there's that place. There's also, contacting the local First Nations. So that wouldn't be me. That would be I would put you an individual to ask about the records and the documents. But I know that a lot of that is also confidential. It has to go through proper process because it's very sensitive information to hold the integrity of the individuals and families
of
that
course.
were directly impacted.
Yeah.
And of course, it also has to be done in a trauma-informed way. So there's a lot of different protocols and steps that need to take place.
So I've done a few reports on it, and I think the main question most people ask is, what is the timeline for excavation to find out, what happened in the gravesite?
Well, for myself, again, we didn't have a scheduled interview.
Okay.
And two, we are still working on, and we have just been assigned an interlocutor that has been, as a part of the press release with Minister Mehdi and with Minister Mark Miller. Okay. We just did that a couple of days ago, so that's also on the website.
Oh, so it is going to happen. There's going to be excavation.
I'm not saying there's going to be excavation, but we are forward steps to determine what's going to be taking place. And that's why the interlocutor, the special interlocutor, has been identified, and we're working through those steps.
Awesome. And then I know your specialist, I think Dr. Bulio, she said you guys did discover a juvenile rib bone surfaced, I believe was the words that she said.
So with her work, you need to contact her.
I did. I tried.
You can't contact me on her work.
Okay.
All I can do is share from the political side.
Sure. Okay.
So you'd have to contact
Makes sense. I have tried.
Is there a way that we could schedule an interview?
Yeah, what's the best way?
We've been trying to do this for a year. We haven't had any luck. We've tried to get into it.
We're the largest independent media in Canada.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, honestly, I'm kind of media over it.
You're over
it.
Yeah.
Seriously, because I know that right now, we just now have someone in place, the interlocutor, to help us in determining some of those next legal kind of steps moving forward.
Okay.
We're looking at some international standards because there's no rule book in Canada.
Right.
So moving forward, I can't predict what's going to happen. All I can say is we're working step by step.
And the RCMP, are they involved in any of the investigation?
So when you pulled in here, you saw our local detachment.
Right.
So we do have a tripartite agreement, and we work quite closely, and you can see how close we are to the local municipality.
Right.
We have an excellent relationship with them as well. And so we have met with all of them. They're all on board with everything that's moving forward. We're working with legal, we're working with National Truth and Reconciliation, we're working with now the interlocutor, and lots of steps that are going to be taking place. Yes.
So international, is You mean the UN's guidelines for?
Oh yeah, because there's like no process like this here in Canada.
So are they the administrative body that's overseeing this project?
No.
Okay. It's just like a guide.
Yes, we have met with them and had discussions, but yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure to finally meet you, Andrea Humphrey.
I'm just sorry that we never had the opportunity before, but I know that Rochelle was managing all that previously, but now it's just kind of her contract ran out, and so most media requests will come to the EAs that are in the administration.
I had family members that also went to residential schools back east, so day schools, so a little bit different. And so it was a very important story for me, and so I understood, like, oh, it's hard to get answers, but then when you would see legacy media do reports, but independent media not so much. So I'm glad to finally meet you, and
it's crazy to run into you. Like, we drove up here from the mainland just to kind of see what we could find.
Yeah, get an update.
Will contact us and most of them will back.
Honestly, I don't have an EA right now, so I'm doing my own
stuff.
It's all
you've been through a lot.
I've been busy with the Pope. I've been busy with the ministers. I've been busy with the memorial. And that was public knowledge. You should have been here for that.
Yes, we were covering something else I saw though.
So trust me.
It's not you, but
I've just been like busy.
How did the conversation with the Pope go?
Amazing.
Yeah. And he's coming out to Canada.
He's coming to Canada, and that was the ask. But again, I provided him an invitation, and yes, I expressed I am disappointed he's not coming to Canada or coming to British Columbia.
I know. I was saying, we might try to get out to where he is. But we have employees over there too, so that's good.
Good.
So do you feel like reconciliation is happening now, or I know that there was some money was given, and then maybe there were celebrations, and then now there's more awareness. What do you think?
Well, I wouldn't consider there was money given.
The $27 million, or
that hasn't even come close.
Oh, you guys haven't received that?
No. So, well, are you recording me?
I have my phone on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this wasn't an interview.
Well,
that's why he turned it off.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I just want to say thank you, but seriously, my time is very limited.
Yes. Well, thank you for the time.
We could have had 5 minutes to just
do it. Yeah, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of people who
There's not a lot of misinformation. We've been sharing all the information. We're following the proper processes.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I just really am really irked. Do you have a business card?
I don't, but I can give you my email. I don't have a business card, but I can give you my information.
Because for one thing, that was really inappropriate how you came here.
We've recorded everything that...
yeah, I know, but it was very inappropriate because I said that this here was an interview. You saw him, acknowledged him turning his off, but yet you proceeded to do that. Yeah. To me, that gives me a bad taste in my mouth for...
I understand.
Who you represent as a media
We represent the public, but I understand where you're coming from. The public still has questions.
The public has a lot of questions, and I've been answering a lot of them, and I've been doing a lot of media stuff.
Right. So, and you clarified a lot of things here too, which is great to hear, and that's all we're trying to get.
The thing is, like, in a press release, you say that you speak your truth, and then you're not in control of international media outlets and how they spin things and how they create things, right? So we're up here, like, just having this conversation with you has been so enlightening, and our audience would love that so much, just that things can be straight.
And the museum is still...
I understand you're stretched thin and you're trying your best, and we're just trying to, dignify you.
And the museum is still saying it's a mass grave.
I just, I work for the people.
Yeah.
I speak the truth.
Yeah.
And I'm upholding our elders and our survivors. Sure. I'm upholding the unmarked graves with dignity and with honor and with utmost respect.
Well, that was sticky, but at least we got some more answers for the public after a year of trying to do so, and I took Cookbee's advice and headed to the RCMP on the reserve next, since I haven't been able to get a response from them through my emails. When we hopped back into the car, we got a call from the researcher who filed a report about the rib bone with the RCMP, and she gave us an update, and I updated her on what just happened as well.
No, we just interviewed the chief. She had no clue who we were, and she answered a lot of questions. She's pretty pissed off. She's pretty pissed off at me because, it wasn't an arranged interview, but I said, I represent the public and they still have questions, and we tried for a year to get them. So, it's not the way I want to do an interview either. I don't want to do an interview like that. But my job is to sort fact from suggestions, from allegations, from fiction, and present all of that to the public. And that's what we're here to do. Now, you filed the police report. Tell us how that went.
Well, like making the first call and getting operator number 85.
Sure, yeah. Walk us through.
That went smoothly. She did wonder why I was calling so long after the incident that the rib bone had been discovered a year ago. She wondered why I was calling now.
Well, it got brought to your attention, right? So.
Well, it's the anniversary of the announcement, and I said I haven't heard that anything really had been done with that bone. Nobody had done any forensic analysis.
Yeah.
I was wondering, what about it? It's kind of important.
Yeah.
Anyway, she took everything down and she got me I don't think she was going to give me a file number, but I said, well, is it possible to get a file number? And she gave me a number. Mm-hmm. So that's good. So it was very positive.
Yeah, that's good. Right.
I didn't even want to know why I was calling.
Well, this is a international concern for a lot of people. So,
well, it certainly is, because the constable told me they had thousands of calls. The one I spoke to last night who got me out of bed, well, he didn't get me out of bed. I lay in bed because I was in bed. He told me they had thousands of calls from all around the world, internationally.
I bet, because you would think it was a crime scene. And so, what did the constable tell you about whether or not they were going to investigate the claim that there was a juvenile rib bone found surfaced?
They're not going to.
No? Well, did he or she say why?
He said it's up to the band. He said we're doing nothing. We opened the file immediately, but we're not really involved. He said it's up to them to do what they're going to do, whether they want to excavate or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, well, okay, what if you had, this is before he mentioned the thousands of people phoning. I said, well, what if you had 20 people calling up the RCMP in Kamloops saying, look, we're really concerned about this. We think you've got to look into it. He said it wouldn't make any difference.
Wow. Well, that seems consistent with what we're finding. We did ask Cookby, the chief, about the RCMP and excavation, and she said they're making no promises of doing that. So,
but she did say she was going to excavate. I mean, that was in one of her press conferences.
Well, that's not a guarantee anymore. Well, you've done amazing research, and you did what a normal person would do when they find out someone found what could be a child's bone. It could be missing person from last year, 5 years ago, 10 years, and told the RCMP, and the RCMP is just not having it. I don't know if you followed sort of some of the reasons why the RCMP has sort of stepped back from this. But if you look online, you can see that, they were told that it could be a conflict of interest for the RCMP to be involved. And there were also allegations that the RCMP were intimidating the ground penetrating radar specialists.
They are now beginning to question those who have made this story available. And unfortunately, in typical heavy-handed and ham-handed police way, they are simply intimidating people rather than helping them. And I think that we need to have a discussion with the police about how they're handling it.
I don't know if this is what's happening, but we do see in other areas in Canada today where people get silenced because if they don't, they look like they're racist or what have you. So.
Well, this was a very personable, friendly, sincere young man I spoke to last night, and he was very forthcoming. In fact, he works on the reserve.
Wow, that's
awesome. Yeah, he works on the reserve, and he was very forthcoming. And I said, look, it sounds like the RCMP's hands are tied. He laughed. He said, oh no. And I said, oh really? I said, who would be tying your hands? Like, what's going on? And he agreed with me. He agreed. He said, we should be looking into this, but we can't.
gonna try to talk to the police.
All right, good luck.
Well, I knocked on the door and no one's answering. We do have some police vehicles here, so there should, I would think, be some people in the building. And it's not supposed to be closed yet, so not sure what that's all about. Here's an officer here. Maybe we can get some answers. Hi, how are you? Good. Do you have somebody from media here today?
No, we don't have a media liaison detachment. City does.
Yes, I've reached out to the city quite a few times, but I'm not getting a response. Could be mentioned that you guys were here, but the office is closed.
Yes, they're closed at 4, but usually at 4, but the lady went home early.
Okay. We're just trying to get an update, since it's been a year since the discovery, on how the RCMP has been working towards the investigation.
Okay, so I'm assuming the 215?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's 200 probable graves now, right? Not 250.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. Bill Wallace would be the best person to get a hold of.
All right. Do you have...
He's the staff sergeant here in...
Yes. I believe I've tried to reach him before, but I'll write it again.
Right now he's busy. He's out on the road busy, but if you catch him on a Monday, he starts work about 7 o'clock.
Okay. Last I did get a response. At the time, it was just waiting for the band to see if the RCMP was going to help. Do you know if anything changed there? Or?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's the higher ups that deal with that kind of stuff for us.
Thanks so much for your help.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Well, I guess they're actually closed at 4. Is it 4?
3:50.
It's almost 4. So they close their doors. There's a nice officer who gave us some info. He said reach out to Bill Wallace, who I believe I've already reached out to, but we will try again.
And so I did. And once again, I wasn't connected with Sergeant Wallace. Instead, I was told by the Kamloops Schwetmik RCMP's media liaison that Sergeant Wallace agrees that the band remains the lead on this investigation. But what about the police report the researcher made about the tooth in the juvenile rib bone, which has served as the only physical evidence to Dr. Bollier's probable graves, yet may not have anything to do with a former residential school student or even a human? In fact, just a couple of months ago, 2 human bones were believed to be discovered at Kamloops Airport, and after the RCMP and the BC coroners properly investigated those remains, it turns out that one bone did belong to a missing person, and the other belonged to a juvenile deer. So would a proper investigation for this juvenile rib bone that was found at the apple orchard near Kamloops Indian Residential School occur now? I reached out to another RCMP media liaison to ask her more generally, what is the RCMP supposed to do with this rib bone? I asked, if the RCMP became aware that a person found what they believe is a human bone, under what circumstances, if any, would the RCMP begin an investigation to see if that bone was human? That officer responded that in every such instance, the RCMP would begin an investigation in which the RCMP would work in partnership with the BC Coroner's Service to determine the origin of that bone. And you and I both know that that has not been what's happened so far. So then I asked, if the RCMP is going to be doing their job, pretty much. I gave them the file number that the researcher was given when she filed the report and the date, and call it incompetence, call it a coincidence, call it a cover-up. But here is the response I received from a staff sergeant. I can confirm that the below noted file does not relate to the discovery of a bone or tooth or the discovery of other human remains. An individual did make a report using the below noted file, but it was to inquire more generally and did not relate to the actual findings of any remains.
Oh, hello. Hi. Is this the number to make a report?
It is.
Okay, I would like to make a report about a child's bone that was found on a property in Kamloops.
Do you know the address?
I don't, but it's at the site of the former Kamloops residential school.
And so the cycle of struggles for a journalist trying to get the public the answers they deserve continues.
So what do you think? Why, a year later, are so many people, RCMP officers, political leaders, and even the media still spreading misinformation about what wasn't discovered at the Kamloops Indian Residential School? And how many other false narratives do we still believe to be true today? If you have any information about a story you would like us to investigate, please go to tips@rebelnews.com.